everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Olivia S. Benson. She is a student and practitioner of metaphysics, a practicing attorney, speaker, and the author of For the Love of My Father, a spiritual guide for women healing from the absence of a father in the age of spiritual evolution. It's truly inspiring, though. When I saw the title of your book, For the Love of My Father, it's funny how that in the moment kind of paused me for a while. I just found myself deep in reflection, contemplation of this idea. And then spiritual evolution just caught my attention too. So, but I have too many questions here for you before I get there. The question that I love asking my guests from the get-go is, this is my introduction of you, but how would you introduce yourself? Who is Olivia as of this moment?
Wow. Well, for sure, I know that I am a manifestation of the divine,
Yes.
walking here on the planet. Above all,
Yes.
I am in physical form, the child of my parents, and more than anything, a student of life. An observer and a student, and based on this life experience, a survivor of those experiences. And that survivor doesn't have a negative connotation. It's just sort of a way of saying that I have had a lot of experiences that I've overcome. And I think that would really sum me up. I mean, as we'll get into shortly, I've had a lot of challenges in my life, and by getting to know who I am as the divine, I have been able to overcome them.
Yes, beautiful. Going back to the topic of our conversation, which is your book, I have here. Thank you for sending me a copy. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really beautiful. And thank you for the bookmarked too. And I read the quote. It's right here. Gosh, I was also reflecting about. There's so much to reflect about. It's just it's a book that's almost guiding the mind to align with the spirit. That's what it felt like.
Absolutely.
Reading in your books. But what was the main intention when you wrote it? I would love to hear a bit more about that.
I felt, well, first of all, I wrote a first book, which we're going to talk about later. It's called Answers from Within. Yeah. And actually, I'm about to release the second updated edition shortly. And that book basically took me 20 years to write. And after I was done with that, I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, right? But a series of things happened, which are sort of mentioned in the book. And one day, all of a sudden, I just felt like I had really healed from my issues with my father. Right. And I felt like I could write about it. Because before that time, any writing would have been with some sense of sadness, some sense of pain, some sense of, look what happened. And but then this day came and there was none of that.
Right.
And then very interestingly, because you mentioned the title, and towards the end of the book, I say the reason that the title is For the Love of My Father is because I came to realize that there was, for many years in my life, the idea that I was willing to do anything for the love of my father, right? That's the little girl, right? There's, I want the love of my father. For the love of my father, what wouldn't I do? But ultimately, that wasn't the truth of what I needed to get to. I needed to get through this experience to know myself, to overcome this issue, and to realize myself as ultimately a manifestation of the divine. So there's a chapter, I think the chapter says, the one I've been looking for.
Yeah, I
right?
love that title.
I'm
Yeah.
the one that I've been looking for all this time. And I can be, so to speak, mad at my dad, and in some cases mad at my mom, and mad at whoever I want to be mad at. But the thing that I was looking for is really the real of me.
Yes.
And that's why it's called For the Love of My Father. Now, the second part, which I'm glad you picked up on because most people don't, is the age of spiritual evolution.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that this is the age of spiritual evolution, right? I mean, it's not advertised as such. And, you know, probably some people would not agree. But actually, this is the time when we as human beings are saying, you know what? No, we need a little bit more. And we are not just going to, in quotations, just go to church and take what they tell us. We got to function at a different level. And we're saying we're not just being religious, we want to be spiritual. We want to know who we are as spiritual beings. And we may be just at the beginning of that, but I call it the age of spiritual evolution. And I think that's where we are. Because now the answer is get to know who you are as a spiritual being.
Yes.
That's the answer. Yes. No matter what's happened to you, number one, you got to forgive. Number two, you got to be grateful. If you're even alive, you can be grateful. And number three, understand the reality of who you are as a human being. And that's the age of spiritual evolution, where we start to live from that place, where being a spiritual being is the most important part of who we are.
Yes. Spiritual evolution, yeah, it feels very much to me that this is what's happening, the age of spiritual evolution. Yes.
May I add one little thing to that?
Of course.
There's a lot of crazy all around us, and that is part of this transitional phase. Because people will say the age of spiritual evolution, what are you talking about? The world is upside down. And No, but when you're in transition, it's always darkest before the dawn. And there's always a lot going on. And one of my spiritual teachers used to say, there's always trouble at the border. Like you're going to change over and there's going to be trouble at the border. So despite all appearances, this is a reflection of a time of change to the next level. Mm-hmm.
Then you got me very curious now to the next level. That's really a question that comes to mind a lot. I guess just the mind, the curious mind wants to know, what would be the next level? What's the evolution of human?
It's interesting that you asked that. I love it. I totally love it. Keep going. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in this book, but in the next book, I talk about very importantly about critical mass. Right? Because critical mass, for me, the simplest way is enough humans begin to live and think and feel and act in a certain way that we all move in a particular direction. Okay? And so from my perspective, what we're looking for is for humanity to come into balance, right? Male energy, female energy. That's one of the reasons why I thought that For the Love of My Father was important, because there are a lot of us women out there who have issues with our fathers. This is just one. But for women to really take their rightful place, and I say that in the book, whatever your issue might be, it might be an issue with your mother, but there are many who have issues with their father. Many.
Right.
But so we're looking to come into, you included?
Oh,
is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So, we're looking for humanity to come into balance, male, female, and to begin to live from their authentic self, their divine self, to realize that you can look at me physically on the outside, but really I am God in the flesh. I'm just a spiritual being covered by skin. And if I can genuinely look at you and be like, namaste, I recognize the divine in you. And what would the world be if we ever got to the place where we all recognized each other in this kind of way. That is where we're going. Now, a lot of people, probably someone watching this would be like, we'll never get there. Well, guess what? The universe has all the time in the universe. How long it takes is as long as it takes. But the ultimate thing is for us to come into balance and recognize, and in a kind of way, this is paradise. Right? This is paradise, where we live understanding that we are spiritual beings, that we are all connected to God, where nobody is separated. This space right here and right here is occupied by God, and that God energy continues right here. And that's the case for every single one of us. That's what we're evolving to more and more.
Right. That really resonates with me as an experience, right? To have the union, union with God, the divine in flesh while we're here. That would be amazing. You're right. As a vision, it's beautiful.
Exactly.
It's one of the things that I guess we all look for. It's a place to stay in the destination of heaven, a place that we can just live there forever and never die.
Right.
Do you think that such a place or dimension exists that beyond the reality that we already are, we never die as spirit in the first place?
Right, exactly. Well, heaven is a state of mind, right? It is not, in my view, a physical place. So you can be in heaven now. Now, you said something super interesting, which is, sometimes you can be in that place for a moment.
Yeah.
And then you lose it.
Yes.
You can emotionally, physically, spiritually attain that and then lose that place. But the job ultimately is how you can maintain that level of awareness, that level of consciousness. That is what we're looking for. And I think you said it earlier, maybe before we even started talking. The thing is what it requires to be able to stay there on a regular basis. It does require a commitment, and it does require work, which, by the way, I'll show you one of my favorite cups. I'm willing to do the work to be whole, right? Yes. This is it. And this is a very difficult thing, because in today's society, and I'll scratch the word difficult and I'll say it's a challenging thing, because people want this, like, let's fix it and move on. And no, it takes as long as it takes. And it can be instant. There's some of us who can fix ourselves, but others of us, I've been on this journey for I don't even know. I'm 40 years.
Yeah, me too, Olivia. Yes.
And I still have work, and I still, things happen, and then I got to go deep into prayer and meditation and bring myself back, and I got to do tapping, and I got all kinds of things. So it's a process.
Yes. And the commitment to do the work. I love that.
Yes.
The way I see it, it's almost, it has evolved throughout the time. I'm 47 now, so it started when I was really young, with a lot of trauma. But now it feels like once we know, and it is a knowledge-based type of thing, you know that you're divine, that you're whole already, because the divine is whole, infinite, limitless. Then it's bringing that perfume to the other layers, right? To the mind and the body constantly, moment to moment kind of way. And that has been it's a metaphor, of course, but it feels very much that way, like a song that I hear when I meet people, with my husband, that's the hardest. He's my greatest teacher in a way, because it's not easy. The mind has been already established with those ideas of him. So it's not easy to dispel them, dissolve them immediately. So it takes more engagement with the divine, with meditation, contemplation, which I do it every day, to kind of bring that. And it works. It's amazing how
it does work.
Yeah, it's very much worth it. And also I heard that by doing this work here, then if we embody in another dimension or come back in a new body, then it's never lost, the
No.
information, all that work. Isn't that
Right.
amazing? Have you heard
Yes.
about this
Yes.
too?
Yes. The work that you do for your soul, because
Yes.
the soul is timeless, boundless, and everything. So any let's call it in quotations advancement that
Yeah.
your soul makes stays forever. Right? It moves you along, however this thing works, because we really don't know how it works, but however it does, your soul takes that with you, just like you take joy and love. Anything that you learn in this life goes with you.
Right.
So
What's not to
yes,
love about that?
yes,
But
everything's
not
to
there's
love.
not. Yes. Yeah. So what is the difference between the soul and the spirit? Do you distinguish them,
Well,
separate them?
first of all, the way that I see it, I'm not a theologian, right? So I'm not going to argue with anybody, but the way I define the soul, it's like, this is the invisible part of me, is my soul. Like, how I subdivided from the divine and became Olivia. That's my invisible self, that's the soul. Now, when I talk about spirit, I'm talking about God as spirit. And part of that is in me. Whether that is the soul subdivided, right? Whether the soul subdivided is the spirit in me, or it's different parts. What I know is that it's the soul is the invisible of me, that's timeless, limitless, formless, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so generally when I speak of spirit, I'm talking about the divine, about God in general. But there's also in each one of us that subdivision, undivided, which is what individual means, right? Undivided, but divided, right? But still a part of the divine, which is spirit. So that's my way of understanding what we are, what we're dealing with. And, sometimes people are a little bit nervous about suggesting that, we are at one with God or those kinds of things, or that you're trying to claim to be God, but no one human being is all of God. You might be, one piece of God, so to speak, or a manifestation of God in a part, but no one human being, because God is everything. God is everything in the entire universe. So we're not saying, and I'm not saying that any one human being is God.
The question that I used to ask was, why is this so? Why do we need to come from unity to separation? Why do we have to have the experience of illusion?
I love that question.
Any thoughts?
That's my forever, like, I think I said in this book, I say, why questions are really helpful. Because even if you get the answer, it's not going to change the reality. But this forever has been the questions of humans. Like, why do we have to go through all of this to get back to what already was? And I have two answers. One of the answers is because we have free will. Because in this grand scheme of existence, GEFS, God, energy, force, spirit, however you want to define it, created the universe and everything in it, and said, so to speak, if God could speak, because God doesn't have a mouth, right? But that's a separate issue. Well, however you want to put it, the idea is there is free will. And so rather than creating, let's say, this universe with human beings and saying, this is what it's going to be, you create them and you say, go do it and let's see what happens, so to speak. The other part of it is that for us to grow, in my view, we have to have experiences. Right. And often those experiences are challenges. But going through the challenges is precisely what brings us back to the divine. Because, all of us have seen somebody who is, let's say, a drug addict. When do they get better in many cases? When they fall to the bottom, they touch bottom. And then you touch that part of yourself. And now you have a chance to really know who you are. And then you can heal from that place. So even though we don't like it, right? We just, even though there's a chapter in my book that says that I would not change this experience for anything, there were times in my life where I swear to you, this is what I said to myself. Before I came into an understanding, metaphysical, new thought, you know what I said to myself? I did begin to say, it's possible that we have multiple lives and things along those lines. And you know what I said? I must have been a very bad person in my last life to suffer this much. As a young woman, that's what I said.
Right.
Because there have been so many things that happened that I said, wow, well, if this is a thing of, of one life and another life and this and that and the other, well, I must have been very bad. Right? Because there's a lot of bad stuff happening in this life, so to speak. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that the more challenges life presents to you, regardless of whether you think it's coming from a previous life or it's bad karma or whatever, the point is that it's giving you an opportunity to find the divine.
Yes.
The more challenges you have, the more possibility, because you're going to say, well, nothing else is going to save me. So you might as well find God.
Yes. Yeah.
So those are my theories.
Yeah. It's hard to say, isn't it, that we have deserved. It's so tough. I remember a story of I don't like stories, really. The truth is, I don't like holidays and stories. But there's this thing about a monk. He was walking around the town with a student, and then he saw one-legged man, like he was a beggar, standing on one leg. The other one had been cut off, and he was begging. And then this student said, "What has he done to deserve that? Isn't that a horrible thing?" And then the monk said, if you knew what he did in his past lives, you would go there and cut his other leg. You would just cut the other leg off too. I mean, It sounds like cruel to say such a thing, right. But because, we always want to replace that with compassion because we don't want to create more karma, right? We want to end there. And that comes with wisdom, it feels to me, and having enough of suffering, unnecessary suffering. Mm-hmm. But enough of karma for now. Talk to me about GEFS. So GEFS, God, Energy, Force, Spirit. Right. Is that a healing method? Is that a spiritual system? Talk to me about this.
Well, I wouldn't say that by itself it's a healing method. It's really just an acronym that really tries to sum up what I call the magnitude of what God is. Because I think that one of the most important things in my healing process was to really come to understand that, very simply, God is not a person. I mean, it's a very challenging thing to do, especially if you are, like I say in the book, I mean, I'm a church girl. I grew up in church. I call it churchified, right? Because I went to a lot of church, and I went to a Catholic school, and I mean, a lot of church. And the idea that God is not a person, I mean, even the thought at certain points in my life would have been sacrilegious, right? The idea that God is not this guy in the white robes and so on and so on. So it was important God is not a bad word. God means that entity that created the universe and all those kinds of things. But understand that it's not a person, that more than anything, God is an energy. God is an energy. And in the, olden times, the word energy didn't even exist, right? So people would not have been able to say energy. They would say God. They might say spirit. There was a point where spirit was, it's okay. But we're talking about an energy that is so big that it's undefinable. It is unquantifiable, and it is everywhere. omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. It's an energy, undefined. And if, as human beings, and many times when I speak, I spend a lot of time to try to get people to understand what God is. Because if you get that, I mean, really get it and own it, like God is love. I can say to you, God is love, but if you don't get it here, you're not going to feel anything.
Right.
But if you can get God is an energy, a force, a spirit that is so big that no one has been able to define it, quantify it. No one can put their hands on it. I mean, it's so amazing. And get it and own it and know it, that can change your life. And then along with that, the fact that you said it, in God. In other words, I am part of this thing. I am part of this being. I'm not separate and apart. And then what I say in most of the things that I write is, okay, that being the case, why would this entity, why would GEFS create us to suffer, to just suffer perpetually? Whether it's this issue of being a fatherless girl or any other issue, what omniscient energy, spirit, force, being creates and just says, you know what, I'm going to make these humans and I'm sending them down there, and I'm saying down, but I mean, I'm sending them down there, and it's just going to be for them to suffer. And there's not going to be a solution. Just go ahead and suffer. That is not possible. It's impossible. So understanding and using the acronym GEFS to sort of give yourself a very clear image of what we're dealing with, and switching from what I was programmed with was, a male sitting on a throne, dressed in robes with a bass voice and all that, to be able to switch yourself, because you actually, to do the work, you really do have to switch your mind. Like, ching, it has to change. And when you get that, then the next thing happens, and the next thing is forgiveness, right? Because you're going to go through a lot of different things, and forgiveness is super important. But guess why it's important? Because when we go through our traumas, right, the traumas put a certain kind of energy in us, or leave, however you want to say it. They leave a certain kind of energy in you. Right. Forgiveness is the way that you release that energy, right? Forgiveness is the way. And your job as a human going through whatever it is that you're going through is to release that energy so that your energy matches the energy of the divine. So now you understand what God is. You understand that your traumas have put you out of balance. Yeah. And you are willing to do the work to get yourself in line with the energy of the divine. That's how I see it.
Yes, yes. Oh, it's so clear to me, Olivia. Yes, very clear. So who is doing the work is the body mind, right? Mm-hmm. Which is not really. We are one with the divine, but as a separate entity in the natural world, we just, we are doing the work here of cause and effect.
Yes, we're living in a cause and effect world.
Yeah, yes. If we do this, we get this. Right. So, so it's almost like God, it relies on us. It's kind of, I heard it that way before. Somebody said beautifully, God needs us.
Absolutely. For this dimension, we are the tools, right? Which is when you are then able to connect with with the divine at large, then you're a vehicle through which things can happen in the world.
Right.
Which, is the topic of my next book. It's called Answers from Within, a spiritual guide for work-life issues. Because the whole thing of getting to this next dimension and so on is coming into an understanding of who we are as spiritual beings, connecting with the divine so that we can accomplish our purpose. Right. So that everybody has something to do. We got to do it, and when you are able to clean yourself up, whether it be daddy issues or whatever issues it might be. Now the question is, so to speak, why did you send me? Why am I here, so to speak? And you can then open yourself to be that vehicle to do, to acknowledge what you were sent to do, and then to be willing to do it.
Yes. And what does it feel like, Olivia, to answer that call, to just surrender to the divine and be the vehicle that you speak of? What does it look or feel like?
Well, obviously, I'm going to have to come back with the new book, but let me say this. You know, I've been a lawyer for many years, and in the last 20 years or so, I really thought of myself as somebody who wanted to write and wanted to speak. Yeah. And one of the things that I say about this subject in the new book is, I say, you're going to know when you're on point, when you're willing to do another job to be able to get to do this job. That's one of the keys. You will do anything, just like, you know, and what we can relate to, you know, how Hollywood stars, they will wait tables, they will do anything for 20 years, right?
Yes. Yeah.
To be able to just get to this place. And then once you are there, the idea that you have been able to find what you came to do is prize in and of itself, right? It's a prize in and of itself. And then I think in the other book, I say, when you're done, to be able to say to the divine, I did what you sent me to do. Wow. Yeah. Wow. To just, it doesn't matter what anybody says or what anybody knows or what anybody's feeling. And it doesn't matter, you know, if you're a gazillionaire or you're not or any of those things. But just at the end of the day, when you're at the end of your life, to say, I believe that this is what you sent me to do. And I did it.
Yes. And there's something about, you know, I have interviewed so many people and I ask the question about what's the goal of life? What's the purpose of life? And I get the answer over and over and over again about helping one another. So I'm wondering if that's what it is. Once the divine is fully active, you're fully divine and fully human, then that's our job, just to help one another. There is a monk, a Swami, who said, when I close my eyes, I'm at peace. And when I open my eyes, how can I help?
Yes, yes.
So I think that kind of, in a way, summarize like that feeling.
I think that's correct. And I said to a very good friend of mine, with regards to this book, For the Love of My Father, and everything that I tell and everything that I share in my journey, I said, I can't imagine coming to the planet as I did, having this experience and having the blessing of overcoming it and not thinking about how I could help another little girl.
Right.
It's absolutely, it would be insane for me, it would be insane to go through this and be able to, because I mean, it so happens that I like to write and I can speak. But to have that be my gift and not say, hey, little girl, I know this has been hard, right? This has been hard. Your daddy this or daddy that. Believe me, I've been there. But listen, this is what worked for me. Try this. Yeah. How could you not? For me, I'm not saying everybody has to, but for me, it seems that you have something to offer to help. And you should try to help. For me, not anybody else. That's my feeling. And I can't be anything but, like you said, true to my feelings.
Yes. So forgiveness, that's a big one. I love the way you say that too. So it's a pill to take as if your life depends on it.
Yes.
So true.
It is. And we ran out of the forgiveness cups, but we actually have a cup that says forgiveness, a pill to take, like your life depends on it. And it's an important one because it's a big reminder. Because sometimes, my God, people have been through so much. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about daddy issues, but people experience a lot of trauma and a lot of pain. You know, if you look in the world today, you can just see, and sometimes people are just trying to hold it together, right? You know, and guys, a lot of times, I'm speaking in this book from a female perspective, but men also have a lot of trauma, because the challenge with men is, you know, that they are taught to hide the trauma. So they go through things and then they're just living with it like I'm supposed to. You know, like I'm just going to live with this for the rest of my life. And that's not the plan. It could never be the plan, in my view, of this GEFS, God, Energy, Force, Spirit, Omniscient, Omnipresent. What? Are you telling me that this was a plan, that I'm going to come here? You're going to send me, quotation send, I'm going to come to this level of experience, and I'm going to have these challenges, because many of the challenges happen as we're children.
Yes.
Okay. And it sets you up for what's going to happen down the road. And you're going to tell me, I'm going to come here, I'm going to be a child, I'm going to suffer this trauma, and then there's no way out? Is that what you're telling me? What would be the point of that? Yeah. So in the book, and For the Love of My Father, I talk about ships and cargo. So we have, as children, a set of experiences that are loaded onto our subconscious, which is what I'm calling the beneath the deck, below decks. And these experiences are in there. But you're a kid, right? So your father treated you badly, or your mother treated you badly, or whatever. All these experiences are loaded in the subconscious. Now you become an adult, you're a ship that's just, and it's energy. You're an adult. You're just sailing in the world with all this energy, anger, resentment, you know, not enough, this, that, all that's under there. And what do? You attract, because everything in the universe is about energy. Who you are is energy, and what you attract is based on that energy, etc., etc., etc. So now you're this ship, and what do we all say? Why is this happening to me? Right? Yeah. Because that's how you are loaded, right? You have that energy in you. And that's a very difficult thing, because I'm like, what did I do? Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you, but it's there. I don't know how you did it and how it got there, but it's there. Right. And then the only way is forgiveness. To release that energy from your body. And I talk about the methods that I know, like one is tapping. You know, tapping is an energy release. I found that very helpful. There are many other methods. I'm not a therapist, so I can't, you know, specifically advise, but I know that tapping worked for me. And tapping is just, you know, there's tons of literature all over the place about tapping, but it's basically a way of releasing certain kinds of energy from your body. Right. And so being able to say, I don't know why this happened to me. I don't know why this person did this to me. I don't know why my life is like this. But if it's my father, I'm going to presume that there is something in the order of the universe. There's something in the order of the universe that allowed this experience to happen. Right. I'm going to release him. God bless his soul, because that's something else we can talk about, because fathers who behave that way, they have their own issues, right? But I'm going to release him from this negative bond that we have, because he's made these deposits below deck on my ship. I'm going to throw those deposits overboard and free him and lighten my load. And until you do that, you are going to be suffering. Yeah. And so that's why it's a pill to take, like your life depends on it. It actually does. And if we were just dealing with the issue of fatherlessness and how it affects women, so many women with relationship issues, unable to bond properly. If you bond, you really don't know what to expect in a relationship. You don't know how to handle it. You have self-esteem issues. I mean, so many issues born out of that. Not that women who have fathers in their home don't have issues, because that's a whole other set of issues,
Yes,
right? That's a whole other set of issues. But so many tied up with that. And then, we're out here as women trying to find the ideal relationship without doing the cleanup work first. And I have to say that, I didn't know that I had this issue, right? I just thought, my parents got divorced. I grew up, well, they never officially got divorced. They got separated. But then I grew up in these circumstances, and I'm really just trying to make it. Right. I'm moving forward. I'm not thinking. But then when things start to go, and I describe it in the book, it's like a spaghetti ball there's so much confusion, and and I go, okay, wait a second. I got to figure out what happened. Oh, it was the daddy thing. Oh, okay. So now we're going to work on that. Right. And ultimately, not immediately, right? Not immediately by any stretch of the imagination, but ultimately to forgive him. Ultimately to forgive him. Right. And then I'm free.
Yes.
I am free.
You didn't mention, in the book, a quote that's beautiful about freedom. I love that. Let me see if I can find it. But before that, there's another under forgiveness, chapter 4. Mm-hmm. You quoted Catherine Pounder, I think her name is.
Yes, Catherine Pounder. Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful what it says there. Do you have that in front of you?
What do you know? What page?
Oh yes, right. The very end of that chapter. Forgiveness.
Oh, I love Catherine Pounder because she's a very well known. I see it. She's also a New Thought minister, and she wrote several books many years ago. But she's one of those older New Thought teachers when the theology was really evolving. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And this is one of the prayers that I say in the morning, I
would love for you to read that if you could.
It's on page 75 if someone is following. I dare to believe that all things have worked together for good in my life. I dare to believe that all things are now working together for good in my life. I dare to believe that all things shall work together for good in my life. And it's sort of like an affirmation of faith that whatever has happened, I accept them as part of the plan. Whatever has happened to me, as difficult as they might be, as unpleasant, as ugly, somehow I accept. Right. I don't know why, but I accept. And I trust the universe, GEFS, God, energy, force, spirit. I trust it enough to know that it can ultimately lead for good in my life. Right. It's an affirmation of my faith in GEFS and in that plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels very much like it's coming from a place of inner peace. That's
exactly
what it feels like.
Yes.
So, you mentioned relationships. There's something, a quote, I think it was, you say, in the absence of a daddy's love and his flawed attempts to love, the first one to love you has to be you.
Yes.
So that's a big one.
It is.
That's a huge one.
Oh my.
When we come to this, understanding.
Yes, it's a big one, and it, not everybody has issues with, let's say, with themselves. There are obviously a lot of people in the world who grew up with two parents and love and a balanced environment and things like that. I mean, obviously having an absent father is not the only circumstance in which you're going to have less than ideal, a less than ideal life as a child. But self-love is it's like the first lesson of being a human being. Self-love, self-acceptance, self-appreciation, all of those things are fundamental. Now, when you have a situation like the one that I had, where, you have a dad my dad was, God bless his soul. And again, I want to be clear, because everything that I say about my dad, I always say that I love him. I mean, he did some very, let's just say, less than ideal things, but I have never felt like I did not love my dad. Never. Okay. But he would do these crazy things, like he would try to avoid me. Like, unfortunately, he taught at the school that I went to. And when I went to look for him, wherever, like in the teacher's lounge, he would be like running away from me. Like I'm like 12, 13, 14, what do I know, but that's between him and my mom, but that's a different story, so at the end of the day, that affects your self-esteem. I mean, like what did I do to him? I'm just trying to say hello, So there's a story in the book, and I don't know if you read it, where I talk about my friend John. And John is a truck driver, and he's a burly kind of guy, and he just very basic, like, hey, this is what it is. So one day he and I are talking, and I don't know what we're talking about, and he says something, and I literally said, well, if your daddy doesn't love you, who could? That's what came out of my mouth.
Right.
Now, I wasn't thinking. And then I thought, and John, who is hilarious, he said, no, if your daddy doesn't love you, that means there's something wrong with your daddy. That's what he said to me, just like that, like snap, snap, kind of talk. That's what he said to me. And then I thought, well, look at that. I actually think that because my daddy didn't love me, nobody else could.
Right.
Somewhere in there, right? Somewhere in the below decks, there's a belief system. And that's what the belief system basically said. And it just popped out just like that. Like, if he couldn't love you, then you're not good enough to be loved. Yes. Right? And it came out. And fortunately, I had a friend like John who was hilarious and made me think. Right? And he said it just like that. Well, if your daddy doesn't love you, that doesn't mean that. It means that something's wrong with your daddy. Right. Kind of way. And that snapped me into, look at that. Okay. And so your foundations of self-love are shaky, right? They're not, you're here and you're functioning, but there are people who you can see in the world that if you grow up with your daddy and your mommy, nobody can tell you anything. Right. You understand who you are because you've been taught who you are, and not by words, but by feelings and by actions. And when you don't have that experience, then part of your job, that's why it has to be you. You are going to teach you. You are going to reparent yourself. You're going to teach yourself how important and valuable you are. And you're going to know that you are lovable. And therefore, other people are going to think you're lovable. That's your job. Why? I don't know. That's just how it worked out.
Yes, I love it. Obviously, that's why I don't know, but that's yes. It makes a lot of sense because it makes sense. That's it. I mean, resonates with the truth.
Yes.
Gosh, I could talk to you forever and listen to you forever too, because this is like a song to me, anything that has to do with the divine and healing.
Right.
It's the prayer. So thank you so much for your beautiful presence. I love your enthusiasm too. It's like this peace with enthusiasm, with passion.
Yeah.
Like peace and passion going together. It's just so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. It's so beautiful. So, gosh, I made a lot of notes here in the book. And I'm like, what about all these things that you said? Beautiful stuff. I mean, we'll have to meet again. Maybe at some point you come back with your new book.
Yes, and we'll get into details. I was going to look here. When it comes to relationships, for example, I think one of the areas we wanted to focus on was relationships. And I wanted to say there's a little thing that I include, the little discussion that I have in the book, and it's about how we as humans, male and females, we play a lot of games, right? And we really want to disclose the truth about our issues. But I think that the day should come, I don't know if it will, but should come, where, okay, you meet a person that you are interested in, and that person says to you, well, you know what? As far as I know, I have these 12 issues. Yes. Okay, and these are what they are. And the other person says, well, as far as I know, I have these 12 issues. And then you exchange lists. Yeah. And you go, yeah, well, I'm willing to work with you on this. You can work with me.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Right? Because we know that everybody has issues. I mean, like, what are we saying? Everybody has issues. Are we going to pretend like you don't? I mean, it may not show on your face. Some people's issues are shown, right? If you're on drugs and you're strung out, or if you're alcoholic and you're drunk, or whatever it might be, those can show. Yeah. But even the people who are, look normal, you can for sure be sure that they have issues. So this particular one, with regards to fatherlessness and what it does to women, is one that requires you, when you're getting involved in a relationship, to be very forthright. Because poor guy, he doesn't know that that's a soft spot, and that he's going to do something, and it's not going to be about him. It's going to be about something that your father did or didn't do. And so being able to be vulnerable and say, okay, these are my 12 issues. Can you manage this? And then I look at yours, because without a doubt, he will have, or she will have, her list or his list. And then that's when we are going to be in a place where relationships can thrive better. That's one of the, let's call it, just for purposes of our discussion, evolutionary steps. Everybody knows that everybody's got issues. And I can tell you what mine are. And if you don't think you can work with this, we can move on. Right? And I'm good enough with myself, right? That if this person said, well, listen, I don't think I can manage that. Then you go, okay, good. I'm sure somebody will. Somebody will manage it.
Good.
Okay. Yeah. So
it's a very interesting suggestion. Yeah, I never thought it that way specific. It's very systematic in a way, right? You're teaching them. Exactly. Yes. And you said, honesty, vulnerability. That's so important. Yeah.
And humility. You mentioned humility, and that's very important too, because you can't you can do anything you want. But the truth of the matter is that as human beings, you can pretend all you want to be like, but you are nothing. We individually are nothing. But that's precisely why people spend so much time building ego, right? To make themselves feel better. But if you realize we're all human, everybody goes to the bathroom, everybody puts on their pants one leg at a time. We all, are creations of the divine. Nobody's a mistake. Like, God didn't make mistakes. There are no illegitimates. God doesn't make illegitimates. Nobody's unnecessary or unworthy. Those are things that we make up, right? Even racial classifications are made up for different purposes, okay? So everybody is a valuable part of the divine, none better than the other. None better than the other. Now, they can mess with your head and your brain and get you to think in a certain way, but that's not true. You're not better than anybody else. And if you know that they're going through, their 10 things, they may not know exactly what you're going through, but as long as you understand that nobody gets away without having challenges. Even like money is a big deal. People think like if you have money, that then you're not going to have challenges. Not true.
Yes.
The money itself can be a challenge, because now you can't even be normal. Right? Yes. So everybody's got their bag of issues.
Yes. I love your message. Love your presence. I love how fun you are too. You're a lot of fun. Because these are very serious. I mean, we can, look at them as very serious conversations, serious topics, serious things to address. But it can be fun too. It can be playful. And
Exactly.
I love how you made this conversation, the entire conversations with these very profound concepts, so much more fun, and
Thank
light.
you.
That's what
Thank you.
light is, isn't it?
Well,
Light.
one of the things I say is that the more you suffered, the more humor you have, right?
Yeah.
Because you better be funny. Or you better find the humor in the
Yes.
circumstances. That's why comedians are typically known to people who've had some challenging experiences. And so, with that, and understanding what life is really about, and then not taking yourself too seriously, then you are able to, and once you heal, because, if you're carrying the burden of unhealed issues, then it's difficult. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, actually, there's in psychology, I think there is a term for laughter when we keep making jokes of everything because we're actually trying to hide something.
Yes.
So there's always that mask we're trying to
Yes, there is a mask that you can use. You can mask the issues try to mask the issues with humor.
Right. You can try, as you said.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah, I like
try.
that word.
And that, sometimes it's coping mechanisms, which is another
Yeah.
thing that we all have our coping mechanisms, for whatever the trauma was. But the big deal is that, when you're ready to heal, you have to be willing to give up your coping mechanisms.
Oh, yes. Right. Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Yes.
Oh my God. Thank you so much again. I want to mention your website. So oliviabenson.com. They'll be clickable on the podcast notes, the video notes. I have Facebook, I have Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. All the links are here. So we'll be on the podcast notes.
Great.
Before we say goodbye for today's conversation, Olivia, because I could talk to you forever and ever. Is there anything that you left unsaid? Anything that's a calling to be here as a message?
I think the bottom line, like I said, very important is that, understanding that God is an energy and that our job is to align ourselves with that energy, and understanding that at the end of the day, the one you're looking for is you.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's end it here with that message. I mean, we all need that reminder. We all need this truth, straight up like this. We are what we are looking for. Yes, beautifully said. I mean, what's not to love about that? I live by that.
Yes.
Thank you so much again, Olivia,
Thank
for your presence. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And we'll talk again. We'll be in touch again.
Absolutely. Okay,
Bye
great.
for now.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.